Now that Raymond and I are back on the film wagon, or maybe we fell off the film wagon. I don't know, it's all about perspective. Anyway, we've been eager to do a little test. Let me explain. Our Fujifilm X100V and many other Fujifilm cameras of today come preloaded with film simulations. Fuji's out-of-the-box simulations cover a variety of Fuji film stock. And for those of you who like to dabble further into both Fujifilm and other brands of film, like Kodak, our friend Richie over at Fuji X Weekly has you covered. In fact, last year we took a deep dive look at Richie's film recipes, and I will link to that video in the description below. Our scope today is to take one Fujifilm simulation and one of Richie's film recipes for Fujifilm cameras and compare them to our results from the actual film stock with images we captured with the X100V and film side by side. In case you're new here, hello, my name is Leigh. I have been sharing videos on this channel every week for 12 years. Today, my partner Raymond will even make an appearance. Exciting times. But before we get there, I would like to thank KEH for sponsoring a portion of this video. KEH is the original re-commerce company, buying, selling, and trading photography gear for over 40 years. They have been a sponsor on this channel for over a year, and I was a customer before that. In fact, our last couple of film camera purchases, like this one, came from KEH. Purchasing used from a company that I trust, who tests all of the gear and is very clear about the condition, is a great way to get your hands on no longer manufactured gear like my film cameras, but also to nab something newer at a discount. And we've done that too. Of course, KEH will also purchase your used gear. I have sold numerous items to them. The process is quick and easy, and I will never deal with the headache of selling on auction sites again. So thank you to KEH. I am also an affiliate with KEH. If you use the links and the codes in the description of this video, you will get a discount on your purchase or a bonus on the sale of your used gear. And then I get a little commission, so it's total win-win. But before you check that out, let's get back to the topic at hand. Now, why would we do this experiment? Curiosity. Regardless of today's results, we're still going to shoot film and also use film simulations in our Fujifilm camera. It's not any sort of decision-making comparison. We just want to see what we're getting or not getting, depending on whether we pick up a film camera or this delightful modern vintage Fuji camera. Some quick parameters for today's comparison. 1. I will be comparing Fujifilm Acros 2 film with the Fujifilm inbuilt Acros film simulation. 2. Raymond will be chiming in with a comparison of Richie's Kodak Tri-X 400 film recipe and the same shots captured with a Tri-X 400 film. And a couple notes. These are both black and white film stock, so color will not come into the picture today. The Fujifilm sensor is APS-C sized, while the 35mm film is 35mm full frame. We photographed film negatives, so the unedited film is exactly that. It's going to look very flat before we make edits to contrast, highlights, and shadows, just as lab equipment and the operator would when making prints from black and white negatives. On the Fujifilm X100V side, we're going with out-of-the-camera JPEGs, as the mission for film recipes and simulations is to emulate the outputs that you would expect from prints or slides of those films. And last, on the film side, Raymond and I will show you the initial flat image of the negatives and then bring them to life with exposure and contrast adjustments. One more note. After we show you what we discovered, there is no winner or loser. This is not film versus digital. This is curiosity, study, and exposition. Let's start with the Acros. We chose 3 photos to compare. 1 gritty landscape, 1 portrait in that landscape of yours truly, and 1 nature shot with lots of intricate detail. Here are those images from the X100V, and then the flat initial images of the negatives captured with our Nikon Z7 in 14-bit RAW. One thing you may notice looking up at the histogram on the film images is that it's in a fairly narrow band compared to what you might expect from your super duper high dynamic range modern mirrorless camera. The Z7 is certainly capable of capturing a wider range of highlights and dark areas than the film, which is typically designed to preserve highlights and shadows for the most flexibility when printing. And from what we observe, modern mirrorless cameras have much more depth and capability when it comes to dynamic range. Enter the Lightroom sliders. So you'll see me making some adjustments here. And one thing that Raymond and I both found when making these edits to one negative, when we copy these edits to other images, it works very well. We kept the Z7's settings the same when photographing each frame on the developed film, and we trusted the film camera's metering when capturing the images. So applying the same slider settings across images gives consistent results. In fact, leaving the X100V JPEGs alone and nailing down the sliders on the Acros film images, we were able to achieve Acros results that almost identically match the look and feel of the film simulation images from the X100V. Did we cheat? We sure did, because we edited one flat film image to mimic the X100V's look and copied those edits across the film images. We don't make optical prints from the negatives. We don't have lab equipment, so we had to do our best to push and pull on that histogram from the film images, stretch it out, and unsurprisingly, when the edits of the negatives began to match the X100V look, the histograms look quite similar too. Also, knowing that there would be grain inherent to the film, we shot at ISO 160 for one X100V image, ISO 400 on the next, and ISO 1000 on the last. Regardless of those three ISO settings, as we zoom in on one of the images, one thing is clear. The closer you go in, the more dramatic the grain difference of the film compared to the X100V's interpretation. It's a consistent and persistent difference, but of course, if film could be grainless, the manufacturers would have jumped on that. In short, we love Fujifilm's interpretation of their own Acros film stock, but we also recognize that if they made it as grainy as our results with the actual film, people might get really turned off by the grain. And of note is that you can tailor the grain in various Fujifilm cameras, including our X100V, but regardless of setting, it's not going to be like our film results. Digital cameras and modern sensors can just get you so much more detail than current 35mm film or film of days gone by. Now let's bring in Raymond and have him show his observations with Ritchie's Tri-X 400 film recipe and our Tri-X 400 film images.
Thanks, Leigh. One thing that I want to point out before I get started in Lightroom here is I used the Tri-X 400 film recipe that Ritchie has on Fuji X Weekly. Now, in the explanation, Ritchie points out some adjustments that you can make, particularly in ISO, and then up above talks about high contrast look versus lower contrast look. I made some decisions here that you might not agree with, but I did. I actually shot at ISO 400, which is lower than Ritchie recommends. I was actually trying to see how the X100V would meter compared to the F6, Nikon F6 that we had the film in. They actually metered differently. That will be a different subject for a different day, but I kept the ISO the same. It's basically going to give me less noise. So I'm going to do less of a comparison on the grain. I'll show you the grain, but it's really not going to be apples to apples compared to what Ritchie has specified here, but the look and feel should be very similar. So let's go take a look over in Lightroom. And like Leigh, I picked 3 images, and you'll notice we were in the same place at the same time and just composed a little bit different. The first 3 here are the Fuji images on the X100V with Ritchie's Tri-X 400 film simulation. And then over here, these are the flat, unedited film images so far. Let's take a look at this first image, see what we can do, and then copy the settings to the others, and then take a look and just see how the look and feel comes across. So first of all, this is a very high contrast scene. In fact, with this JPEG, the whites are blown out. This was with +1 on exposure compensation, and that was to try to get some information from the shadows here. What we ended up with is a partially blown out sky and a very dark foreground on the film simulation. and it was a very high contrast situation in northern Arizona. So let's go over here and let's take a look. We've got a fairly narrow histogram. It's occupying about 2/3 of the space. So let's do a little dehaze. That's something that Leigh did not do in her edits. Let's see here. Bring the shadows up. Bring the blacks down. Now you notice the sky in the other image was blown out. I've got a lot more to work with here with a raw image of a negative of Tri-X compared to the JPEG with the settings baked into it. Let's see, let's add a little contrast. It's looking similar to the image. We'll flip back here. It's just less muddy. There's a little more detail in the shadows that I'm able to pull out. And now, granted, I haven't made any edits to the JPEG. I'm just working with the Tri-X here and comparing to the X100V. But all is looking pretty good. Knowing that we have some differences here, let's copy and then let's paste to the others. So yeah, those are actually very similar now. This was a kind of a basic high contrast photo, that telephone pole against the sky, and slightly different focal lengths on the two as well, but you get the picture. And so you see me just toggling back and forth. Now let's pull in a little bit on the Tri-X. Now you can see here, it's a very almost binary grain. There's darks and lights, and they're all kind of clustered together to make the grays. And if we go over to the Fuji image, and we'll pull in here, you can see everything's a lot more smooth. Again, I shot at a lower ISO than Ritchie recommended for this. I did add, per Ritchie's settings, the grain settings, large, strong grain, and it's there, but it's just not the same thing as the film. And once again, shooting at a lower ISO than Ritchie recommends. Let's go ahead and look at the others. So this one was with the film recipe, and again, this high contrast situation, shooting in JPEG, and then photographing the negative, I was able to get a lot more out of it. Now, if I wanted to, I could increase the whites. I could make it more of increase the whites. I could pull the blacks down. I could pull the shadows down. The key here is you do have the flexibility. If you're shooting Tri-X and then photographing the negatives in RAW like we have, there's lower or higher contrast looks that you can bring to this image that are going to emphasize it in different ways. This, to me, starts looking a lot like what we got out of the Fuji camera with the settings baked in. Let's go ahead and look at this second one. We really haven't looked at this one yet. This is the Fuji film image, and then this will be the edits applied, and that's really close to the look and feel. And this was copied settings from the initial edit of the first image. If I pull the dehaze down just a little bit, I think it's almost going to match identically. It's very close. It's very close. Exposure is just a little bit different. If I really fine tune the exposure and contrast, I think we could make them almost indistinguishable, and I may have just done that. And then this third one, pretty basic, fewer tones. Really not a whole lot going on here, but to me that's kind of the point of Tri-X, is to emphasize. It brings so much contrast. It really helps emphasize contrast in a scene, and I feel like we accomplished that without a lot of effort here, guys. We took flat negatives and close comparison, none better than this one here, between the film recipe and the film itself with some adjustments here in Lightroom. So I'm loving what we're doing here, and I want to keep doing it both with the Fuji camera and then also shooting Acros like Leigh did and Tri-X as well.
Thank you, Raymond. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to keep shooting film and keep shooting digital, including using those film simulations and recipes. And sometimes we won't know which until we're grabbing the cameras on the way out the door. The bottom line on today's comparison is that whether using the simulations or scanning or photographing film as we have, you will get a very similar, often identical look and feel between the film stock and the digital interpretation. And when you zoom in on the images, our observation is that the look and feel will change due to the film grain the closer you look. However, if you're not pixel peeping, grab the film or grab the digital or grab them both and enjoy the experience. If you enjoyed this comparison of curiosity and would like to see us do something similar, give this video a like. Always feel free to leave comments or questions down below. And if you've done something similar to what we showed you all today, let us know your results. Everyone's technique is different down to how you might digitize and process negatives. So I'm definitely curious to hear from anyone who tried this and got similar results, or maybe some differences that we didn't even uncover in our own comparison. Of course, make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you to KEH for continuing to support this channel, and thank you for watching.